Today for lunch, we're going to rehydrate some Meatloaf Scramble with some loaded mashed cauliflower. And we freeze-dried these in February of 24 and December of 23. And we're going to use our insulated containers that have the two parts for the two different rehydration times for the foods. Since we're at home, I'm just going to use scissors to cut this open. When we're traveling, we usually do the rip off the top technique, and if it's something that needs to be resealed, you can on these temporarily since they have the zip top. And that still has a little bit of flexibility to it, so its life is not completely used up, which is good. It did its job. And if we look in here, everything is nice and dry. When we packed up our meatloaf slices, some of them broke into pieces, so some of these just became Meatloaf Scramble. We'd like to spot check our stored food items, and one of the things you can do quickly is just gently give the packages a squeeze, make sure everything sounds like it is still dry, and check the seals for their integrity, make sure that there's no holes. You can also weigh them as you're packaging, which is what we like to do, and you can see if the weight has changed when it comes time to use the food packets. Just going to cut this one open next. And once again, you can see that everything is nice and dry and well preserved. Had to move the contents around a little bit to see where that little OA was in the packet. And here it is. And again, still a little bit soft and flexible, so it still has some life left in it, which is a good sign. It did its job and still had some left. Now I'm using the other container in this set to put in the mashed potatoes. These are loaded cauliflower mash, since we like to do lower carb. And having separate containers is nice because sometimes foods rehydrate at different speeds. And if you can separate them, it just makes it a whole lot easier. Okay. When rehydrating, we like to use filtered warm water as opposed to boiling water, since sometimes, depending on the food, it can overcook things. And we like to use 160-degree Fahrenheit water. One of our electric kettles allows us to do just that. And meat takes in only what it needs, so I'm going to let that sit in the Meatloaf Scramble. And then with the mashed cauliflower, it's a little bit more tricky. You can calculate the water lost and add that back, or especially if you're on the go, you just drizzle in and just kind of eyeball it to see what you need. And you don't want to add too much because then it just gets watery. But these pretty much rehydrate instantly. And we usually let them sit for a couple minutes just to see if a little bit more water is needed later. All right. And then this has its own little lid. I'll put that on. And then this container just sits inside this one. Put the lid on and just let that sit for about 5 minutes. Now I'm just going to add water to the second one. You can also give these a stir after a couple of minutes if you're letting them sit for 5 or so. There's the Meatloaf Scramble. And then I'll come over here and do the potatoes. And I say potatoes loosely because these are cauliflower mashed potatoes. All right. We also do riced cauliflower as a rice substitute. That works really well in a lot of foods. All right. And there's the lid for this one. And then that'll stack in here. And we'll just let both of these sit for about 2 to 3 minutes and check on them. It's been just a few minutes, so I will take a peek. All right, Loaded mashed cauliflower is ready. I could add a little bit more water if I decided to, but these actually seem like they're a really good consistency. Perfectly rehydrated. Everything is still warm. I can feel the heat. And let's take a look at the Meatloaf Scramble. Everything is soft. Seems like it's fully rehydrated. Smells good. It's still warm. And you can just pour off the extra water. You can also use warm beef broth if you want extra flavor when you're rehydrating beef dishes. Same thing with chicken. You can use chicken broth. All right, that one looks good to go. So the Meatloaf Scramble is ready to eat. I poured off the extra water, and the loaded mashed cauliflower is also ready to eat. And this had cheddar cheese, sour cream, butter, and chives from our garden. Now I'll just take the lid off of the next one. Take that container out. And once again, I can just pour off the extra water for there, but the Meatloaf Scramble is fully rehydrated. Everything is soft, smells good. That one's warm also. If I open up the loaded mash, oh yeah, that's perfectly rehydrated. Excellent. Okay. And that is a really good way. If you've got two different foods that need separate rehydrating times, or you just want to keep them separate for eating purposes, you can. Get one of these little 2-layer containers. They're great. These containers also have a little folding spoon that you can pack in the lid. So convenient.